Let's go straight across now to political analyst and international affairs expert Stephen Golub, who's joining us on the broadcast. Thanks very much for being here. Let me begin by asking you for the factors that involve Biden's popularity ratings. To what extent do you see the Israel-Hamas war actually impacting his approval ratings? Because we saw the numbers, and the war so far has not really helped his popularity rankings.
Yeah, it's a really good question. Ironically, in terms of substantive accomplishments, both foreign and domestic policy, President Biden is probably the most accomplished president we've had since Franklin Delano Roosevelt, nearly a century ago. But you're absolutely right. He's not doing well in the polls. I'd say there are at least two factors operating there. One is his age, or the perception that he's too old to be president. He's doing a great job as president, but not a great job as a candidate. He comes across sometimes as frail, as a poor communicator. And another factor is, while inflation is coming down in the United States, people still remember lower prices from years ago, and they hold it against him that the prices aren't as low as they were a few years ago before the pandemic. Now, in terms specifically of the Middle East, it's really hard to tell. It depends how this whole war conflict, very difficult situation plays out, whether it expands. But we can say this: generally, a presidential candidate who's very pro-Israel is strengthened by the perception of their being pro-Israel. However, Biden could lose some votes on the left, particularly among younger voters who are less pro-Israel and generally more pro-Palestinian. Again, it's hard to tell exactly how that will play out until we see how the conflict itself plays out.
Indeed, and talking about his popularity rankings, can he still manage to turn the tide? As far as the conflict is concerned, like you're saying, there's a lot that remains to be seen. But what would the voters expect from him as far as his stance on the Israel-Hamas war is concerned?
Well, it depends on which voters we're talking about. But I'd say generally they want him to support Israel. If American lives start getting lost in this conflict, then that could change the dynamic. If, for example, Israel and Hezbollah escalate to a full-fledged war, which is possible, making it a two-front war, and if the United States then weighs in on Israel's side, not so much by troops on the ground, but let's say by bombing Hezbollah positions, and U.S. fighter pilots get shot down, that could conceivably change the dynamic for the worse for him politically. One thing I might add, though, is that his visit to Israel, combined with his visit to Ukraine a number of months ago, both in the middle of war or conflict situations, could actually help his campaign next year, in that he'll be able to say to people, look, I went to these conflict zones. I stood up for our allies. I showed how strong I am, while Donald Trump was busy hiding national security documents in his bathroom in his estate, which is something he's actually being prosecuted for now.
Stephen Golub, thanks very much for being here on the broadcast and sharing those perspectives.
Thanks for having me.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the updates on the move.